Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Nihal Jaswal, and about my professional experience, I've worked for Tata Consultancy Services, and there I have served Microsoft for their Team Foundation server. And till now, I have trained more than 5,000 engineering graduates and working professional, and helped them to switch their career into the data field. Right now, I'm the CEO of Arbor Creation and also a trainer at consoleflare.com. Okay, so I think that's all about me. Let's move toward the topic, which is big data. Okay, as you can see, too big to ignore. Okay, so let's start with the first slide. So for the smooth ongoing, I've divided this presentation into four parts. The first part is what exactly the big data. Okay, and in the second module, we'll see how big data is, how big the big data is. Okay, and in the third part, we'll see how we can process the big data. And in the last section, we will talk about how we can leverage the power of big data, which means we can use it to the maximum advantage for us. Okay, so let's start with the first module, which is what is big data. Okay, so big data is kind of a buzzword in the IT market. Like everyone is saying, big data help companies to generate valuable insights. Companies use big data to refine their market campaign and technique, and but frankly speaking, big data is not a technology. It's just a problem. Okay, and why it is a problem? Because we are storing the data which has no use right now, but in future we will process that data for collecting meaningful information. Okay, so the exact definition of big data is, it referred to a huge volume of data that cannot be stored and processed using the traditional computing approach. Okay, within a given time frame. Okay, what is the traditional computing approach? It's kind of a standalone system. Right now we are using standalone system for everything, which means one server or a one system to process anything. For example, we process data with different programming languages like Java, C, C++, Python, and we also use some domain specific language like SQL to process the data. But these technologies are not up to the mark to process huge amount of data just because they are standalone technologies. Okay, so traditional computing is what we are doing right now with our single system, and big data is a problem which can't be processed with the help of single system in a given time frame. Okay, so how huge this data need to be termed as big data? Okay, so in this scenario, on what measures we can say data is big? Okay, so here is a catch. Even a small amount of data can also be referred as big data. It's just depend on the context it is being used, which means a system. Okay, for example, let's suppose we have a email system or a email service. For an email service, 100 MB attachment is a huge amount, and an email service can't attach a 100 MB file. Okay, so for email service, this 100 MB data can be considered as big data. Okay, but for our PC, like suppose I want to play a game, so I need to execute the files of my game. Okay, and let's suppose the game is total of 10 GB. Okay, game file consists of 10 GB of data, and if my computer can easily process 10 GB of data and I can play my game smoothly on my laptop, so this 10 GB will not be considered as big data. So see, for 100 MB emails, for 100 MB for email service can be considered as big data, but 10 GB for PC may not be a big data just because our PC can handle 10 GB data very smoothly. So as I previously said, even a smaller data can be also referred as a big data. It depends on the context. Okay. Okay. So the second point is how big the big data is. Okay. How exactly the big data is. So we have few parameters to understand the uh, to define the parameters of big data. These are the five V's. Initially, these five V's are given by IBM itself, and the V start with volume. The first V start with volume. The volume refers to the size of the data set that need to be analyzed or the process. Let's suppose we have 1 petabyte of data, so that 1 petabyte of data is the volume of the data. Okay. About velocity, velocity is essentially measures how fast the data is coming in, which means let's suppose I have 1 petabyte of data, it's the volume, and 1 petabyte of data per day is the velocity, which means the rate of which data is producing. Then after talking about variety, it defined the type of data which we are producing. For example, we can produce images, we can produce video, we are producing text data. Okay. So this is the variety. For example, I am creating 1 petabyte of data, it is the volume. 1 petabyte of data per day is the velocity, and 1 petabyte data per day in the form of video is variety. Okay. Then after the fourth V is veracity. Veracity is how accurate or reliable our data source is, which means if our data is not reliable, then there's no need to process it, because it will give you a wrong information. Okay. That's why the let's suppose truthful of data set is very important. So it is considered inside the veracity. And the last point is value. Value means value derives from the processing the data using different analytics and contribute the problem solving, which means uh, any data, if we will process any data and it will not produce any meaningful information, so the value of data is zero, which means if we are analyzing data, so we are spending some cost over it, and if the data will not produce enough value to us, then we should not process this kind of data. So these are the five V's. Okay. Volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value. As a single view to a customer, we have our data at different places. For example, uh, we have social media where we can produce our data. We actually have our so much data over social media in the form of images, in the form of video, in the form of status, text, right? And as a user, we play games on different platforms like PlayStation, Xbox, and like let's suppose for an example, PUBG contains our so much data, like our performance over PUBG, right? And how many headshot I've already taken, what is the my overall rank all around the world server wise. So they capture all our data to enhance our experiences. Okay. Same as a user, we also use Netflix, YouTube. Some of people have their YouTube channels, and some generally use YouTube. So both are creating data in different manners. For example, if you have channel, you are directly contributing with your videos. But if you don't have channel, YouTube already capture your data at different of stages, just because they want to recommend you the best video and they want you to engage on the YouTube. That's why they capture your data. Same as Netflix, everyone knows Netflix has the best recommendation engine among all the OTT platform. So for a better recommendation engine, we need so much amount of data. So that's why we can say Netflix capture so much data. In our banking and finance service, we have accounts in our bank. Okay. We use credit cards, we use debit cards. So bank also capture our data to provide us some personal experience, as well as uh, to figure out if there's any fraud is happening, or to analyze any risk. They capture our data. Same as for corporates, if you are a student or you are a working professional, you must have your data in any kind of ERP your college or your companies are using. For example, when I was in the TCS, there's a tool known as Ultimatics, which capture all the data of every employee, like attendance, their learning trackers, their hierarchy, their leaves. So in school as well, they have their softwares for fee management, attendance management, and timetable management. So all our data will be there as well. And in the e-commerce, Amazon, Flipkart, they capture our data of cache, cookie, so that they can also uh, give us some personalized advertisements, so that we can purchase more and more. So as a single view to customer, we have our data in different platforms. Okay. On an average, here are the data facts, which I'm showing right now. On average, every human created at least 1.7 MB of data per second in the year 2020. Okay, which means combinedly we created 2.5 quintillion data bytes daily in the year 2020 itself. Roughly 306.4 billion emails were sent and received. Okay, each day, not in the year. Almost 5 billion videos on YouTube are watched every day. Netflix users in the US are watching a total of 6.1 billion hours, okay, of Netflix per month during the quarantine periods. And I like this fact because that's nearly 7 lakh years. People are using so much Netflix these days, right? So we are producing so much data. And the third part is the most important part. We are producing data. We know big data is a huge amount of data that we can't store in our system, and we can't process it. Then in the second part, well, and we know that any data can be big. It depends on the context of it is being used. Okay, although we are producing so much data. In the third part, we'll see how we'll process big data. Okay, this part is little complex. That's why I've used a layman example to understand, to make you understand very easily. Okay, so with the big data, we have two major challenges. The first challenge is to store big data. Okay, and the second challenge is processing. So we will learn one by one how we can store data and how we can process. So we'll start with the storage part, how we can deal big data. Okay, so in big data storage, I have an example. So let's suppose there is a school and you are the principal of that school. Okay, so you are the principal and you have done your marketing, you have done your promotions, and in the next year there are total 50 students are there. For 40 new admissions are there, and 10 admissions are previous one which were promoted to ninth class from 8th. So we have total 50 students this year. Okay, in this 50 students, 40 are new admissions. So here is the problem. We have 50 total students, and problem starts when we don't have proper space to accommodate them. Okay, for example, here is our classroom. Okay, in the school we have so many classrooms, they are empty. Okay, but the problem is each classroom has some capacity, which means in a single classroom only 10 student can sit. Okay, so we can't accommodate 50 student inside a single classroom. So what we will do, okay, over here, which means 50 students are our data, and we can't store 50 students inside a classroom. Okay, so what we will do, we will use a technique divide and conquer. Okay, which means I will create 5 sections of ninth class, ninth A, B, C, D, and E. And I will distribute all the student among these 5 sections, like 10 in the each. So one class has the maximum capacity of 10 students. So it's okay. Now I can store 10 students in a single class. And now we have accommodated every student in these 5 sections. Okay. So considering this fact, we can compare it with our big data terminology. Okay. For example, the 50 students were our big data. So what was the initial problem? Our commodity hardware was not sufficient enough that we can store that 50 student into a single class. Okay. So one classroom can be referred as a commodity hardware or a laptop you are using right now, and your laptop don't have sufficient storage which can accommodate these students, which are 50 in number. So we have chosen a process named distributed storage. So the distributed storage is we divide all the student into 5 different parts, and we created a section 9th A, 9th B, 9th C, 9th D, and 9th E. And in every section, we send 10 students. Okay. So combinedly, this scenario is known as distributed storage, which means 5 computers are there. If we have, let's suppose, 50 TB of data, and a single system can store only 10 TB of data. So we need 5 systems at least to distribute this 50 TB data among all. Okay, so that's the distributed storage. That's how we deal with big data. We will not use a single system, we use multiple systems. Okay, so the architecture will be something like this. This one is the master computer, and these are the slave nodes. Slave nodes are think of like a CPU. We have 5 CPUs which have storage like hard disk, which have processor like i5, i7, and they all have RAM. Okay, around let's suppose 8 GB or 16 GB. So this is the distributed storage. We will not store all the data at the same place just because our system was not sufficient enough. So we will make a cluster of computers and we store data into the distributed format so that we can easily store these kind of data, okay, which are big in size. So that's how we will we deal with the storage part of big data. Now coming toward the big data processing part. Okay, so in the processing part, now we have stored data in our distributed format. For processing part, I will take the same example, the example of the school, so that you can understand how we can process the data which are stored in the distributed system. Okay. So let's take a scenario. You are the principal again, and you want to give a medal to a student who perform the best in the ninth class. Let's suppose an exam happened in the ninth class and results are out, and you want to give a medal to a student who perform the highest, okay, which have the highest marks in the ninth class. Okay. So to find it, as a principal, I call 5 class teacher of the respective classes like 9th A, 9th B, 9th C, 9th D, and 9th E. I call everyone and said, give me the name of the student who is the topper of the class. So 9th A's class teacher went to his class and asked all students who has the highest marks. So the result came out, it was 82%. Okay, and respectively every class teacher performed the same task in their respective classes. Okay, so now I have 5 results: 82%, 91%, 75%, 86, and 90. So I can't give a medal to every student, because initially I wanted to give a medal to a student who topped the class, among all. Like I want the topper of ninth class, not for a particular section, correct? So here I have 5 results. So I need to reduce it and reanalyze it and find the maximum among these 5. So after analyzing these 5, our result is 91% is the highest, which comes from the ninth B section. Okay. So you can compare it with the distributed system. These are our data in the distributed manner, and we want to process it like we want to sort the data, or we want to find the maximum value of any particular column. So we need to implement something like this. Okay, so here are the taking place in 2 levels. Like first level is this one. For individual class, there are individual faculty who process the data, like 82%, 91%. And the second level of processing happen over here, in which we receive all the data from the class teacher and reduce it to a single result, which is 91%. Okay, highest. So this technique is known as MapReduce. Okay, MapReduce is a software program, and it is made up of 2 part, mapper and reducer. So mapper are the programs which go to the individual computers and process data in the individual computer. And after every mapper done their job, reducer will start and reduce all the result provided by mapper and produce a final result, which is 91. So here are the 5 mappers and 1 reducer, just because we have 5 block of data, or 5 data which is distributed across the node. So 5 mappers are there, and every mapper produce a result, and that result will be reduced by reducer to create a final output. Okay, so these are the techniques to process distributed data, and this technique performed by map and reduce is called distributed and parallel processing. Why distributed and parallel processing? Because we have one task to find out the maximum number. Okay, but the data is in the distributed format. So that's why we provide each data to each node and use their processor 100% over 10 data only. So we divide our task into multiple tasks, which means distributed processing, and every node started working at the same time. That's why we can say it a parallel processing system. So here we are doing distributed and parallel processing. Okay, that's why the big data will be processed in no time. Okay, or it will take less time than our traditional approach. Okay, combinedly it is known as cluster computing. Only slave node process the data and store the data. Master node only manages the slave nodes. Okay, so here for storage we use distributed file system, and for processing big data we use distributed and parallel processing through MapReduce. Okay, MapReduce are the programs. Okay, initially it was written in Java, so you can use Java to write a MapReduce program, but now you can use other languages too. Okay, so these storage technique and processing technique, which is distributed file system and MapReduce, was initially figured out by Google in a research paper in 2003. Okay, and but it was only on research paper. There was not exactly any platform to process this data. These are some techniques over paper only. After that, Yahoo in 2006 used the exact same research paper of Google to create a actual framework known as Hadoop for a nudge search engine of Yahoo, right? And Hadoop was the first framework to process the big data, and it used for storage, it used HDFS, which is a Hadoop distributed file system, which means distribute data across the cluster instead of putting all data into a single cluster. And for processing, it used MapReduce for distributed and parallel processing across the cluster. Okay. Hadoop was designed by Douglas Cutting. Okay, Douglas Cutting was the employee of Yahoo that time. Okay, and he created the Hadoop system, Hadoop framework. Till now, we have created so many big data tools for different tasks. Like for data storage and processing, HDFS is there. For data analysis, Apache Pig is there. Data warehousing, Apache Hive is there. There are so many tools: Spark, Cassandra, and Kafka. But all the tools work on the same principle of master-slave architecture and distributed storage and distributed and parallel processing. Okay. In the fourth part, we'll see how to leverage big data. Okay. So many companies are using big data for their product enhancement, to improve their operation, to produce more sale. For example, Amazon implement dynamic pricing system to stay ahead of competition. Okay. Amazon use big data to change the product price every 10 minutes, which means the product price changes about 2.5 million time a day. Okay. And it includes the competitor pricing analysis and inventory that is available. So you can see Amazon generally change the price and analyze the competitor pricing and inventory throughout the day, which is 2.5 million times, which is not a task for a single computer, okay, or a single server. We need a distributed system like Hadoop to process this huge amount of data, okay. Same as Netflix. Netflix produce $1 billion per year with its Netflix recommendation system. Okay, this one is the machine learning algorithm, alternate least square algorithm, but it will work with big data only, because alternate least square algorithm needs so much amount of data for the accuracy, and to handle that much amount of data is not possible for a single system. So machine learning or AI must need to be clubbed with a big data technology so that they can process their algorithm faster. Same like US government use Spatio Owl. Okay, Spatio Owl is a software based on big data, which capture transportation related data from different servers across all urban area, and it also identify the hotspot area where the accident happened most of the time, so that it can mitigate the risk of accidents. Okay, and there are various other sectors like banking, agriculture, real estate, telecom, healthcare, which are using big data. For example, in banking, we generally use big data to understand how our customer use their account to help them identify security risk as well. In agriculture, we predict the weather and squeezing the maximum productivity out of the land. For real estate and property management, uh, we generally analyze the properties for better trend analysis, better understanding of their customer and the market. In telecom, there are several key area, including customer experience, fraud detection, churn prediction, and dynamic pricing, same like Amazon. In healthcare sector, big data uses specific statistics from a population of individual to research a new advancement, reduce cost, and even cure or prevent the onset of disease, right? So these are the sectors. Okay, so that's the PPT. That's all about how big data process, how we leverage. Let me demonstrate you one tool, okay, uh, one big data tool, and let me show you how you can even process big data very easily. Okay, so we are going to use a tool known as Spark, Apache Spark. Apache Spark is a unified analytic engine for large scale data processing, and it is faster than Hadoop, around 10 to 100x faster. See, Hadoop can process big data, but Spark is even faster than Hadoop. And it is the product of the same company. Like Hadoop was the product of Apache, and Spark is also the product of Apache. But Spark is little upgraded, you can say, which is 10 to 100 times faster. As you can see here, to perform a logistic regression in Hadoop versus a Spark, let's suppose if Hadoop is taking 110 seconds, then Spark will process the same data in 0.9 second. Okay, it depends. It is a second or minute. I'm just giving you a unit of time. Okay, which means Hadoop can do something in 110 unit of time. The same task Spark can do it in 0.9 unit of time. Okay, just because Spark use in-memory computation as well. So Hadoop only use distributed and parallel processing. Spark use distributed parallel processing as well as in-memory computation. That's why it is faster than Hadoop. So how we can use Spark? Okay, we have certain uh, programming languages through which we can use Spark. So we have Java, Scala, Python, R, SQL. If you know any one of them, you can use a Spark. Spark is not a library like Pandas or Scikit-learn. It's a kind of technology. Okay, distributed computing technology, but it provide you ease to do it with Java, Scala, Python, R, or SQL if you know. Okay, so to actually process any data, we need certain things. Let me show you. Okay, let's clean it. The first thing we need is a distributed setup, which means I need a master node. Okay, and I also need a slave node, some slave nodes. Let's suppose I have three slave nodes. Okay, S1, S2, S3. First, I need this kind of architecture, which means I need to connect four computer with LAN or through internet. Okay, it depends how much data you need to process. So preferably, these structures will be connected with are generally connected with LAN cable only. So let's suppose we have connected master with three slaves, and we need to process our data. So let's suppose we have data over here. So the size of the data is 3 TB. Okay, and the individual computer have the capacity to store 1 TB. 1 TB. Okay, and if we need to process, if we want to process 3 TB of data, we need to break down this data into three equal parts. So here are the three parts, 1, 2, and 3. Now we will distribute these three parts into individual systems. Like the first one will go over this, the second one over here, and the third one over here. Okay, so we have three parts in our three system, and from master node we will write a code on uh, on Python or Java or SQL. Let's suppose I'll choose Python. Okay, so if you work with Python in Spark, it will be known as PySpark. Okay, so let's suppose I'm working in PySpark, which means I'm using Spark with Python. I'll write a code to process my data, and I don't have to take care of the distribution of data set. Okay, that's the best part for big data processing, because I'll write my code as I'm working on a standalone system. But Spark automatically will break down this code into two parts. First is map, and the second part is reduce. So I don't have to take care of this part. Spark will automatically do it for me. Okay, I will write a code like I'm writing in my pandas or something. Okay, and it will automatically break down into two part, map, reduce. Map part will go to the individual systems and process the data in the individual systems. After they have performed 100% of their task, reducer code will start and reduce the result of each mapper and create the final output, which I can see in my master computer. Okay. So we need two kind of people to process big data. Okay, two job profiles are needed. The first one is big data admin. Okay, and the second one is developer. So the first one is admin and second one is developer. So big data admin generally create this master slave architecture. Okay, they are responsible for that, connecting each node with everything, installing the softwares like Spark, HDFS, okay? And the developer only perform analysis query over the cluster. Okay, so tasks are divided into two groups. So I don't have to take care of this master slave architecture because admin will do it for me. And as an analyst or as a big data developer, my task is to only process the data and find out the meaningful information from it. Okay, so we don't have any cluster right now, but there is a company who provide you a pre-built cluster so that you can learn over their platform or you can process data over their platform without any need of Hadoop admin. Okay, so the company is Databricks. Okay, let me show you. While using Databricks, I don't need any big data admin to create a cluster for me because I can simply create a cluster with the help of Databricks very easily. Okay, so let me log in into my account. So here is my account, uh, communitycloud.databricks.com. I'm using community account that because it's free and even you can practice over it. Okay, and if you want to analyze real data and the data is too huge, you can opt for their paid service. There's no difference of any code in small data or big data. The difference is only the computing power. Okay, so for practice purpose, community.cloud.databricks is sufficient enough. Okay, for actual production use, you need to opt for their enterprise edition. Okay, so here you can see we have some options like compute, data, search, recent workspace. Okay, in compute, you can see the icon. This icon is some like similar to what I've created over the whiteboard. We have 3 slave nodes, and this one is the cloud cluster, which means data is not going to process in my system. I'm creating a cloud cluster for that. So in the compute section, I can click over here and create a cluster. Uh, so I name it Saturday. This cluster consists of one driver, 0 workers, because this one is a community cloud. Worker means number of slave nodes. If I will opt for enterprise edition, I can increase worker node up to 4,000, 5,000 computers, right? A single cluster of this master slave service can consist of 6,000 computers right now. Okay, so let me create this cluster. It is creating right now. While it is creating, we can create a workspace. Okay, here is the workspace. We can create a new notebook. It is something like Jupyter notebook. I can name it, okay, like Nehal. And it is asking me on which language you want to use Python. Sorry, on which language you want to use a Spark. Okay, so let's suppose I can use a Spark with Python. I can use Spark with Scala, SQLR, anyway. Okay, so let's choose Python. We are doing it on PySpark, which means, and let's select the cluster. So cluster is done. Saturday is started. We have created our notebook over here. Okay, this one is the notebook. Now I can write my queries to process the data. So where is the data? We need to upload it on the cluster, okay, itself. So I will go to the data part. and I'll create a table and upload a data. So let's suppose my data is, I have one data of Pokemon. There was a cartoon Pokemon, okay, on Cartoon Network. I hope you guys have already seen it. Okay, there was a game 2 year, 3 year back, which was very famous, Pokemon Go. So I have data of it, in which the name of Pokemon is there. Okay, Pokemon. Who have not seen Pokemon cartoon, you can just assume that Pokemons are the animals which have some special power, and they fight each other in order to uh, be the best in the tournaments. Okay, so we have ID column, we have name column with us, type column, like of which type particular animal is. Like we have different animals of different types. Similarly, in Pokemon world, the animal were of different types. Okay, so we said Squirtle, right? It was a water type Pokemon, right? My favorite was Pikachu. I think uh, Pikachu was famous than everyone. Everyone loved Pikachu. There is a movie last year, right? So we have name of Pokemons, type one, different types. Okay, of Pokemons are there: grass, fire, water. For example, who know Pikachu? It was of electric type Pokemon, right? Same for me, George. Okay, so we have type two as well. Let's suppose some Pokemons are of fire type, but they know how to fly. So they have two different types. First one is fire, and second one is flying. Okay, we have healing power, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, speed. These are the values, okay, of their power. Generation and legendary. Okay, legendary means rare Pokemons. If this one is a rare Pokemon or not. So this one is not a rare Pokemon. Okay, rare Pokemon is something like dinosaur. Okay, which is not available easily or something. Okay, so I want to process this data. Okay, in our distributed system. So what I'll do, let me rename it first. Where it is, Pokemon copy. Okay, okay, game. Okay, we have this data game, and I need to upload it in our cluster. Okay, so in the desktop we have Pokemon. Okay, game, game CSV. Okay, so I have uploaded my data in the cluster. Now I'm creating table. I need to choose the cluster as well, because at some platform, in this platform we can create many cluster, but right now I'm using Saturday, so I'll choose Saturday. So we have table name game CSV. First row is header, info schema, multi-line. So the Pokemon CSV was the one file. Okay, game.csv was the one file. But as I will upload it on this Spark cluster, okay, it will automatically distribute into different nodes which are present in our cluster. Okay, so for example, okay. For example, we have this file named game.csv. So this one is the single file, right? But our cluster is something like that: one master with three slaves. Okay, in game.csv is a single file, and as I'll upload it on my cluster, it will automatically break down into three part or four part. It depends. We have so much in the architecture as well, but I can't tell you everything at this point because we have very limited time. So let's suppose it is distributed into 3 parts. So first part will go to the first slave, second part will go to the second, and third will go to the third. And even we don't have to think about it, which part is going to where, because our master will capture all the data, which part is going on which slave, and it will manage everything for us. So for a developer, everything is abstract. As a developer, we need to work exactly like same we were working in standalone system. There's nothing different. Okay, Spark will automatically do everything for us for distributing data, till distributing data, and as well as processing distributed and parallel. It will perform everything by its own. We don't have to care about it. Okay, so I have uploaded it. Let me create the table. Okay, so I already have a notebook. Okay, so I can run code from here to save some time. Now our data is uploaded. We can import that data in our variable, which is a data frame, two-dimensional data structure. If you have already done pandas in Python, then you are very well aware of data frame. Okay, or if you don't know about data frame, consider it as a SQL table. Okay, so I need to attach this file, this our notebook with the cluster we have created, which is Saturday. So I've attached this file, which means everything I'll write on this notebook, and whenever I'll run it, it will execute on the cluster named Saturday, which we have created before. Okay. So now to load our data, I need to write these syntaxes. These syntaxes are PySpark syntaxes. Right now, I know you don't have any idea of PySpark, but just work on the concept. Just see the logic. Don't be confused with the syntax because you have not learned it yet. Okay, so see the logic part only. Okay, so Spark session is an entry kind of entry point for the Spark. With the Spark object, we can call any method of PySpark. For example, here I've created a data frame. It is similarly a variable like we have used in Java, C, or Python. Okay, so this one is a variable. I can name it Nihal as well. So right now it is df, which represent data frame. So I can read this data. The data is game.csv in G is capital, and I've stored it in data frame df. Now if I'll run df.show, okay, it will show me the data. Okay, game.csv is not the name. Game.csv, I suppose. So, okay, so this one is a case sensitive. My file name was game.csv with small g, and I'm using capital G. That's why it is creating error. So df.show, which means here is our data frame, which is loaded in our PySpark. We can see data over here. There's only 20 rows because big data technology will not show you whole data just because it will consume memory. So it will show you only the part which is necessary for you to have a look like a sample only. Okay, so we have this sample. We have 12 columns, 800 rows, and we have loaded our data. Now we can query over data like we query in the SQL, and the MapReduce part will written by Spark itself. So we don't have to care about MapReduce part. We need to write query as like a standalone system. For example, I want to view some particular column, then I'll use select statement. Okay, those guys who are aware with SQL know we generally use select statement in SQL. So exactly similar like SQL select, here we can select that particular particular column which we want to show. So df dot select name and type. If I want to show HP or type, which is healing power and type, then I just need to write HP and type 1 in a list, and it will show me this column. So right now, this processing is not happening in my system. It is happening on the cluster, cloud cluster, which is distributed computing. Okay. Same in SQL, we have where clause, but in PySpark, we have filter clause. Okay. df dot filter, and we can filter anything. Okay. In our data. For example, there's a call HP, and I want to filter those Pokemon who have healing power greater than 80, then I can write data frames HP column which are greater than 80. Okay, and I'll run it and show it. So here we can see in HP we have only those Pokemon which have value greater than 80 in the HP column. Okay, other are filtered out. If we want to give multiple condition, we can use and. Similarly, like other languages, we'll use and symbol, single and symbol, and we'll give another condition. Like for example, speed is also greater than 100. And okay, just wait, messed out inverted brackets. Sweet, run so. Okay, so now we can see HP is greater than 80 and speed is greater than 100. Okay, so everything is very super easy. I'm using distributed system, and I don't have to care about MapReduce. I don't have to care about distributed storage. I'm just writing code like I'm writing in Pandas or SQL. Okay, it is similar like that. So we don't need to take care of everything, right? Spark will take care of everything. Okay, we just need to write the code. Similarly, if we are using PySpark, and at some point of time, if we want to use SQL, we know SQL in SQL this query will be simple. Okay, so we can use SQL in PySpark as well. Okay, we just need to create a temporary view of our data frame. Okay, like I've created it with the name people, and I can use that people in our spark.sql method. Okay, select district from people, and it will return me a data frame selecting all the columns from the people. Okay, sweet. Let me run. Okay, which means I can use SQL queries whenever I want. Okay, in between the PySpark as well. Okay, this is the flexibility you can have in PySpark. So there are various tools through which you can process big data like Cassandra, Spark, and Bigtable, uh, Kafka, Pig, Hive. So it's up to you which service you want to opt. Okay, but PySpark is very trendy these days. So you can go with PySpark if you want to make your career in the field of big data. Okay. I think that's all about today's session. If you want to ask me any question, okay, I will be glad to answer it. If you guys have any question or you didn't understand anything particularly, I can show it again.
Thank you so much, Nihal. That was really nice, and it covered a lot of different things. So it's a whole overview. So if anybody wants to ask anything, please go ahead. Don't feel shy. Anything. You don't need to be, it doesn't need to be very technical. Like if you don't get the whole overview, just ask simple. Just ask.
Okay, So is this website used only for sorting big data, or does it have other uses? Okay, Keegan has asked that Databricks is only used for sorting big data, or does it have other uses? Databricks is a platform where you can apply machine learning. You can apply streaming services. You can use SQL analysis through big data technologies. Okay, and Databricks is just a layer between cloud computing and data analysis tool. So you can do different things, but all will be centric toward the big data in the Databricks. Okay.
We can also use Jupyter Notebook directly, right, instead of using the Databricks. But I think it has an advantage
You
to
can
store
use
large data.
yeah, even your company can create a cluster over their platform as well, and with the IP of the master system, you can create a file in your system with the Jupyter Notebook, and with that IP you can execute your command over the cluster.
Yeah. Thank you so much to answer that. Is there anybody else wanting to ask anything? Do connect with Nihal on LinkedIn and other platforms if you would like to keep in touch with him. And please, everybody, fill the response sheet if you would like to. I'll just send the link to that. I sent the link to that earlier as well. Just fill that in if you guys have time. And we have another speaker which is going to show up at 3. So we have a couple of minutes left. So I'm just going to stop the recording now.